Hello, all, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Tesla Motors Club podcast. My name is Marc.
I'm Lewis.
I'm Mike.
And we are so glad you guys have joined us today. Today, we're going to have a lot of topics on the table. Most notably, the one I like is about the Rivian price increase. There's also a Polestar concept car that has a drone on it. Figure that out. And we're also going to have one of the big boss applesauces, Doug from Tesla Motors Club Forum, is going to join us today. And we're going to take a trip down memory lane and ask him all types of questions. So it's going to be a really fun podcast. Please stay tuned and look out for it. So, we can just jump right into it if you don't mind. There's a topic that we all discussed, and it was about the Rivian and how that the price is certainly they're walking back on the initial price they gave everyone else, and we know you had talked earlier about that this is kind of reminiscent of the early Tesla days, and maybe even the Cybertruck is even kind of going in that route, but that's still a ways away. So. We know you have some expertise on that, and I think a lot of people who are looking at EVs may be interested to know how Tesla handled it back then, and maybe you can compare it to how Rivian is kind of doing it today.
Maybe someone else can give a little more detail about the Rivian. I mean, basically, they said they're raising the prices. Go for it, Liz.
They had optimistic pricing for their pre-orders, right? I guess that's a fairly common thing with new technologies is you have a price point.
Would you think the Cybertruck would be a lot? Do you think the Cybertruck was underpriced? Because $70K for the tri-motor was great.
The problem is when you have a new piece of technology that involves new manufacturing, new components, and all that kind of stuff, you can't really know fully what it's going to actually cost you to make. You can kind of ballpark it. And I think there's always I don't want to say politicizing, but like the marketing spin of like, how good can we be? How amazing is this product? Oh, and look how good our price point is kind of like a selling point. So they're definitely optimistic often. A lot of times products will even sell under, right? And then over time, as they improve, they'll make up the difference, and then, they'll reduce costs and they'll improve on that. So there's always that going on. But I mean, supply chain also is a challenge, and the features and all the things coming. I think the difference here is that oftentimes when companies do that, they don't change the price to the pre-orders. They don't change the price and kind of, I would argue, like almost screw over those that are, that are early adopters for their company. Whereas, Doug can get into the specifics, but Tesla did something similar over 10 years ago. Rivian's doing it now. So my understanding is they've raised the price quite substantially, tens of thousands of dollars. And they're not locking it, like they're saying, sorry, that you pre-ordered it and you thought this was the price. We're not selling it to you for that. So you can either give up your pre-order or you paying us more money. I
think what they've done at this point though is that they have backtracked. So if you had the pre-order before they made this announcement, they're going to honor it, and they also are going to, if you canceled, as you already had a pre-order and you canceled in disgust, they're going to let you get back in at your pre-order price, but anybody new
and
trying to order now has to.
And supposedly in your same spot in the queue, you don't have to go back to the end of the line.
Because it was totally their bad, as they put it, right? So
right.
So they're going back on it. They're going to fix it for you, which wasn't what Tesla did, back in 2009.
Yeah, can you give us some more information about how that was back then?
Yeah, so it was, sort of a complicated time. Tesla, I mean, if you can just sort of think about how different it was. I mean, Rivian is coming into an environment where there are established EV companies, right? I mean, or Tesla exists, GM and other manufacturers actually make production EVs, right? But there was no production EV back when the Roadster was coming out. There used to be back in the late 90s, the EV1, and Toyota even had a RAV4 and such. Ford had a truck also back then. But some years had passed. The California EV mandate had been done away with, and so Tesla was just starting back to okay, can we have EVs, and doing it in a way that, okay, let's do a sports car, let's do things that people can be excited about and change the script on EVs. But the truth is that they were selling it for more than it cost them to produce, and it was around the time of the Detroit Auto Show that Tesla introduced this Roadster 2.0, and they also introduced the Roadster Sport. So they're like, okay, look, here's a new Tesla that has all these new options, that can do cool stuff. And the real impetus behind the Roadster 2.0 is that they didn't really say at the time was actually lowering the production costs. I mean, if you compare the two vehicles, there are things that, like, they had these really expensive connectors, for example, that were just unneeded, and they just got rid of them, and just a bunch of things that the PEM, the power electronics module, is much simpler in the 2.0 Roadster. So they basically learned some things, but they still had, people that had paid for the version 1, full price 2 years prior. And the funny thing also is that, these cars, the majority of them weren't even made until 2009, but they wanted to lock in, okay, this is the first model year. So here are these cars being delivered and made in 2009 that were actually, that were being called 2008 vehicles because, people paid for the first production year, and they made a big deal about that. And they did a lot of engineering with the VIN numbers. People wanted a nice low VIN number, and they because they were paying for it. But so what they did was they made a change to, in a weird way, they released information about all these options you can get. Like, oh, here's, some special wheels you can get, and, premium sound system. But these were all things that people had already locked in as part of their car. So people were confused. They're like, okay, here are these new options, and they cost more money. But I've already paid for that, right?
Exactly.
But what they did was, so it was a little bit tricky. And what they did was that, oh, we're not changing the base price of the car. What they said is, oh, we're just changing the price of the options. But these are options that people thought they had already paid for. So when you make a item that was standard, you make that extra cost item, you've effectively changed the price of the car.
Right, yeah.
And it was, for some people, it was as much as, $17K more expensive for their car. I think for most people, it was like around, $4,000 extra or so. I mean, the main difference was the wheels. There were these neat kind of slanted spoke wheels that were like, designed for the Tesla or something, and that they're really, kind of
aerodynamic
like
and fancy.
Yeah. So this was the Tesla, wheel. The Tesla Roadster wheel is iconic.
Yeah.
And that all of a sudden became like around a $3,000 or $4,000 option. People are like, what? And they had these standard wheels that were nowhere near as cool. They're probably selected to not be as cool, so people would want the better wheels, right?
I agree.
So anyway, so a lot of people were unhappy about all that, and people were really confused. We had threads on the forum, people upset about it, and after the fact, Elon eventually wrote a letter, and the truth is they really had to increase the price because they needed it to get additional funding, because they were essentially selling the car at a loss, and they were not allowed to do that by the people that were funding them. So that was the main difference. But about 400 people, like the first 100 or so, actually got what they paid for originally, and then the next 400, basically had to pay more. They did other things too to try to convince them to get the later vehicle, to get the Roadster Sport. It's got more performance. And then they were selling the original, the first model year at a $30K premium, because if you really wanted that first year car. But the truth is that first year car cost them more to produce.
So in the case of Rivian, I'm not sure if you read the press release that he put out, or the note that he put out, but it's kind of reminiscent of what Elon did, But my question is from someone that's on the outside looking in. Like, did they anticipate? Do you think someone? This is speculation. Do you think someone said, "Hey, you know what? We can't afford to make this vehicle at this price. So should we start it at this number and then, down the road once we get some traction, say, hey, look, we goofed. We made a mistake." Or do you think they thought? This is speculation. Just what you think. Or do you think they thought, okay, we can make this truck for this, and then Corona happened, and that kind of made things change their mindset. Do you think the supply chain affected what Rivian is doing now?
I have no reason to doubt their honesty on that. I mean, the truth is these things did happen. Corona happened. Right. There's the supply chain issues, all that stuff, inflation, sure, but you just don't say, okay, now everybody, people that have paid, you gotta, we're going to change it on you. You got to find some kind of balance, and they, they're right to backtrack. That's a lot to eat.
Sure.
I think they had to, though, just to the outcry, right? It's not like they wanted to backtrack. They wanted what they initially said.
They had to do it for the goodwill, right?
Well, so Rivian, I mean, they started working on this truck in 2016, 2017. That's when they first started to pull together their parts list, their bill of materials, kind of take a wild guess what this is all going to cost us. Lots changed since then.
Yeah, and so it's similar with the Roadster in that, people are placing their orders back in 2006 or so. And, these are people that had given faith and money to Tesla. And, I think the real difference is, and, somewhat of a calculation for Tesla is like, does it make sense to burn these early adopters, these first customers? Because the truth is, there aren't that many of them, right? 400 people had to kind of eat it, right? Compared to hundreds of thousands of, Model S owners and Model 3 owners, just sort of moving forward. And it was the survival of the company that was at stake, really, right? So they made a calculus, and they, right or wrong, I mean, actually, you just have to say right because the company survived. But there are certainly people that at that time that felt really burned by it, and people that got their cars and they love their cars, and they're but they're like, I'm never buying anything else from this company.
Do you think that's an inherent risk for any early adopter?
Oh yeah, sure, sure, but you expect to be treated with respect, right? And a lot of people felt seriously disrespected by it, and Elon sent out a letter that was pretty good, but at the time it was not great. Did not go over well. There were a couple town halls that we did back in. If you watch Revenge of the Electric Car, you can see a clip of the one that happened in LA. There's another one that happened in Northern California and at the Menlo Park store, which I wasn't there, but I listened to it live because they put out you could call in and listen to it. And so I listened to that, and that meeting did not go well. Elon said, well, but you're getting the tax rebate, and people were like, but that's our rebate. They're not happy. So that did not go well. And the tone of that meeting was not good. In fact, Tesla promised to release the audio of the meeting after the fact. They never released the audio of that meeting. It was just too damaging. I mean, the whole thing was just a really bad thing. They did a few of those back then, these sort of town halls, and there were some recordings that were released. Man, I wish I could find them because they're kind of neat from a historical standpoint. Of course, now everything's live streamed and on YouTube, but back then it was people calling in maybe, and it was kind of an earlier time.
How did that whole process? Tell us a little bit about how you followed. Did you follow Tesla from when they first mentioned that they were making cars? Where did you come into the Tesla world? And when all this happened, did it make you feel like I'm not buying a Tesla, or did you stay the course and say, you know what, regardless, I'm still going to get this car. Or I'm still going to be investing in this company?
Well, that's an interesting story. I mean, TMC has been around since 2006, back when anybody heard of Tesla, really. My first exposure was an article I read in the New York Times that had a little snippet about how when they gave somebody a ride in the car, they'd tell them to adjust the radio. So they'd lean forward to adjust the radio, and then they'd slam on the accelerator so they'd get jerked back. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. I was in grad school at the time in applied physics, and to me, the Tesla Roadster was just amazing. I mean, you had a car in its simplest form, and that's something you look for as an engineer. You want simplicity, right? And so you had, an energy source, which was the battery, and you had a motor, which, has, approximately one moving part, and connects to the wheels, and you go. And like, okay, that's it. Not all the complications of internal combustion engine with the pistons and at that time, I was driving a little Miata, which was a great car to sort of learn on.
Great car.
To learn how to do stuff. A lot of space in engine bay, and I had a lot of fun with that car. And I'd park near the lab and get the tools and, from the lab and work on it. And the Roadster just seemed so appealing then. But, there was no way I was buying that car then. I was in grad school and poor. I'm like, okay, I'm not buying this thing, but I was interested. And what was neat was that Menlo Park store was pretty much right across the street from the campus. And I was able to stop by, and I stopped by like every week or so to see what was going on. You could see like a sea of cars that were waiting to be delivered, and they weren't because there's some little issue that they had to deal with on them. And I take photos and post it on TMC, and
now they just deliver them.
Yeah. But it was funny because all the real assembly was done there. I mean, they had these gliders that were flown over for the most part from Hethel in England, so from the Lotus plant. So they're just like basically these rolling bodies, and in Menlo Park they would install the majority value of the vehicle, which was the motor and the battery. The battery pack, and they did it basically in what used to be this the Chevy service center. It was a Chevy dealership, some years prior that actually Stanford owned, and then Tesla got a lease on that land. So,
actually wondering about how this is going to impact resales, because right now, I think Marc, you mentioned this in the last podcast, how there's this whole concept of selling your Tesla because you can get more for it than you paid, and then buying another one. And so you've got all these early adopters that have bought Rivians. They have the lower price point. The price is higher now, so the value has gone up. Are we going to see a lot of like people, early adopters, you know what, I'll sell this one and then I'll buy another one or something else in the future?
The one thing I've seen a lot with EV owners, at least in our neighborhood around here, is people tend to cycle through EVs. They want the newest toy, whatever the newest toy is. So
we like to throw out our iPhones.
Well, in a way, it's almost like that. Because you've got a car that's 1 year old, and the next gen has got all the new computers and all the new features, and it's got the software that won't run on the old car. Or a different manufacturer has got a different set of toys. And I've watched these guys cycle through 3, 4, 5, 6 cars in just a few years. And it's almost like a habit.
It's true that more and more, especially EVs are basically tech items, right? And so there is technology gets better, range gets better. But regarding Rivian, I mean, you think that, people could, if they don't want it, they could sell and split the difference on the current, price or something. Or, we see that already with Tesla. So many people on TMC, trying to sell their reservation spots, and
exactly.
Tesla tries to crack down on that somehow, but as if there's a wait for a car and there's somebody that's willing to pay a price to get it sooner or now, they'll do it, right?
So,
There's a market.
Doug, what's your thoughts on the Cybertruck reservation and the whole process? How do you think that's coming along? Are you first off, are you interested in a Cybertruck? The fans want to know, number one, and number two, how do you think that this whole process is going in terms of has it been delayed, and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I'm a fan of the Cybertruck. I don't need one.
Right. Right.
I barely need a car as it is. I have a Model 3 and I love that car. But like a lot of people, I mostly just work from home. So it's okay. Do I need to go someplace? There's probably a cheaper or more efficient model of ownership that hopefully will come along when if we ever get these robo taxis or whatever. I don't feel the need to own stuff so much, but I do really like the Model 3 I have. I don't need a Cybertruck, but it's cool, and it's totally for people like me in terms of how Elon's sort of a nerd.
Exactly.
And, just the way they market it, the whole. I love Blade Runner. I love they had November 2019. That was great. I love that the confirmation for the reservation was the owl from Blade Runner. I was like, oh, this is great. I thought people dressed up like characters was dumb. And if you saw that presentation, I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. But whatever, man. I still thought it was fun. How's it going? The company has to have priorities, right? The Roadsters, things I'm excited to see, right? I'm excited to see the Cybertruck. Really excited to see a new Roadster. But they gotta do what makes money, right? And right now that's the why, the 3 and the why, right? So if they get these new plants spun up and get that out, and then you can have your flagship. I think what they really need to be doing is the Semi, because that's a large impact, environment wise sort of vehicle, and that's the kind of thing that needs to be on the road, and whatever infrastructure needs to come along to support that. That's to me the most important thing after just the company being more profitable. And things like the Cybertruck and the Roadster are just kind of like cherry on top kind of things. They're kind of like flagship type vehicles. I don't know what the profit margin will be on those, but certainly the numbers are less than the Y would be. The Roadster, I really want to see that. I was a little disappointed with what was it, $250,000 price. You know what I want? I want a Miata. I want something like the everyman's Roadster.
Yeah.
Little R Roadster.
Yeah.
Where I can rag top that I can drop and I can just go run some errands and just drive for fun. 100 miles range would be fine. I just need to drive around the neighborhood or go up, go drive some twisties and come back. And I want something like that for 50K or whatever or less. And I don't need something with cold gas thrusters for that extra little bit.
Yeah, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Yeah, Lewis, Plaid
yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah, you know what? I would have gladly gone for the Roadster if it was out, but it's not out yet. No, that is an insane price tag. I mean, obviously there's market for people in that price range, but I don't know. I think
and
it's not practical
for the
at all.
performance, it's fine.
What's that?
For the performance, it's a reasonable price, right?
Sure. It absolutely. I mean, I think the Plaid is a steal for the performance. It's just, do you really need that performance? I don't know.
Oh yeah, and the Plaid in some ways undercuts the Roadster.
Right. It'll be interesting to see. I'm waiting to see the actual Roadster once it comes out. I want to see the engineering behind it. I want to see, what those thrusters actually do. I mean, it'll be
look
interesting.
pretty.
Yeah. So what, Doug? Talk about a little bit about the Roadster itself, because I will admit I don't follow Roadster. But what do you think? Or has there been posted for people who may not follow it as well? What's been posted as to why it's been delayed? What keeps it getting pushed back and things like that?
I don't really know, but I would guess just company execution. I mean, a lot of the technology they developed for it has trickled down, right? Uh, what are the most expensive, difficult things in the manufacturing? It's often like, stamping the body panels and stuff like that, right? So it's much easier to roll that stuff into the Model S, right? Which is really the flagship vehicle right now, right? The Model S, and come out with the Plaid, right? Which had been hinted at forever, right? The Plaid, right? With the whole Spaceballs
Ludicrous
thing.
mode.
Right.
Ludicrous, yeah, ludicrous was
Right.
was the step, and there's nothing past Plaid, right?
Right.
So that made a lot of sense actually, as a stepping stone to the Roadster, and like here's something we can sell and learn from, right? I mean, as far as I know, the Plaid wasn't trouble free, and Lewis, is there some
Definitely some issues. There's,
right?
there's a number of vibration issues that are known, and some other things that are probably the key sticking points. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with Doug. I think the problem with the Roadster, the biggest reason it's probably not out yet, is because Tesla only has so many people that can only work on so many things, and supplies are limited, and all the other stuff going on. So they need to make money, right? Like that's right now they gotta print money, and they're doing quite well compared to other automakers. But I don't know. It's a lot of it has to do with just the technology development, the manufacturing, the lines. They're working on getting their Y production up.
Well,
And
their
how
production up.
many and how many Roadsters did they owe people, right? Don't they owe a bunch of free Roadsters to people?
Probably.
Man.
Yeah,
So it's certainly a net loss initially.
yeah, for the referral program. I feel so burned by that personally. 'Cause, like, we've been running TMC since 2006, right? We have definitely, uh, you know, um, Danny and I, have been running TMC for so long and have definitely sold hundreds, thousands,
For sure.
tens of thousands
For sure.
of
For
Tesla
sure.
vehicles,
Your
right?
site was the reason why I got a 3.
Right. We've sold so many vehicles, right? But I didn't personally own one until December of 2018. I ordered the Model 3 when it came out. That was the first car that made some sense for me because I was just trying to be environmentally conscious, right? I mean,
Sure.
at that time, I was only driving between home and campus a couple times a week. I drove at most 10 miles a week. It didn't make sense to get a very expensive car on a student income, And so, yeah, it wasn't until, and then I ordered in 2016, but then didn't get a vehicle, and of course didn't get a referral code until 2018. And right about then, Tesla decides to totally neuter the program. Instead of actually getting cool stuff, you got a few bucks worth of supercharging miles, and now you don't even get that.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I really missed the boat on that. Where people are getting, for 500, they got, there's, getting Roadsters. Like, man. Oh well, I'm not bitter at all though.
Oh, of course.
But,
No.
We can tell.
Actually, Doug, I got a question for you about I'm going to marry the Roadster and the Cybertruck together for a moment. And based on what I know about manufacturing and the way Tesla's been behaving, as they built their cars, I have to say in the back of my head is the Roadster and the truck both suffer from the same root problem, and that's scope creep. It's the same problem the X had,
X had it,
and getting it out the door. that they kept adding things, and the engineers go, "Oh, we can do this, we can do that. Got this other cool thing that we can just add."
Is
to
it the engineers or is it
I would
the
argue.
guy?
In my expertise, Mike, scope creep is rarely the engineer's fault.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm just
it's
throwing it out.
engineers.
I don't know. I'm an engineer too, and when I got an opportunity to make something better,
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah, but when you're when someone's telling you to do something, and then you basically do what you're told. Okay,
Right.
we want to do that.
All
We'll
right,
try to
I'll
do it
go
as
with that.
efficiently as possible.
I am guilty of the better syndrome. I can make this better. Just give me another week. I can make it better. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some scope creep, but I don't really think that's the issue right now.
No.
No, I mean, they're trying to get new new manufacturing locations online. Cybertruck will be made, I guess, in Texas, right? So they'll do that, but I bet they'll be making
They got
They'll
the
be
final
making threes
approval
and
for
ones
Giga
first,
Berlin,
I mean.
so that should be.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of Ys already made, just sitting
yeah,
there,
they should.
ready to go. I think they're shipping now, actually, but yeah,
They got the official approval. What, 4 days ago? 3
yeah,
days ago?
this week. It's just happened. But I mean, one of the brilliant things that Tesla's doing though, for the Cybertruck and the Roadster, I'm sure is doing it too. But across all their lines, like the 3 and the Y, if you look at the actual parts and the teardowns and the stuff they do in the engineering, they're using the same parts. They're doing a lot of things that are intelligently designed that span across. So like even the Model S Plaid has the same layout for the circuit boards for like the inverters, and has the same types of design around like the heat pumps and things like that. There's a lot of similarities, but they make their technology extensible so that they can say, oh, I can scale it down to what a 3 needs, I can scale it up to what an S needs, and I imagine to what a Cybertruck will need.
It's still
But
the same thing.
The core is the same components. And that, I mean, that's brilliant for manufacturing. That's brilliant for just engineering and integration. I mean, they do that in anything that's, highly technical, complicated, high scalable, products. That's the only way you can really be profitable.
And that's one of the great things about Tesla too, is they aren't waiting, right? They aren't waiting to when they have something better and they're ready to ship it, they ship it. As opposed to waiting till the next model year or something, like that. I mean, it was funny for a while watching, the 3 come out, and the 3 was really a new vehicle, a lot of new things, and they still had existing, Model S's, and people are like, well, is the 3 the better vehicle? Because it's got a bunch of new stuff that the S didn't have yet, and finally for that stuff creeping in back into the S, so that the S is the better vehicle, is the more expensive sort of flagship type
the
vehicle.
faster vehicle, at least.
Yeah. So speaking of of manufacturing, so what's going on with Germany now?
I mean, it's a great topic. I don't know, Mike, do you want to take that one?
Well, they got their approval. They've been waiting for weeks for the final approval on Giga Berlin, and it's official. It's like a live breeding factory now that can ship. So some interesting things, not just for Berlin, but let me get my notes up here so I can quote it correctly. Estimated sales for EVs global market is about 3.2 million EVs. That's for 2022. This is what Giga Berlin will be contributing to. 30% of that will be Europe. So I suspect that Giga Berlin is going to be contributing a lot to the new EV market there. I mean, just crank it out. And what they're saying is that's up 37% from 2021 sales.
Nice.
So, and I mean, I've heard rumors that Tesla is already looking at alternate sites in China. They've got Shanghai and they've got other sites, and they're already trying to figure out where they can put more sites. So they're not slowing down.
Yeah, I imagine that might even be optimistic of an estimate with all the stuff going on with Russia and oil and other things. The oil prices are going up. You might have a larger pool of consumers looking for EVs.
Last week, or the last podcast, our first podcast, Light Crude, the benchmark for a barrel of oil was $99. As of today, the benchmark was 115 US for the same oil. So yeah, it's taken quite a hit in the last week or so.
And Germany agreed to pause on that pipeline, right, from Russia. And
they did. They did, which is huge. That's a huge change for them.
So it should be, a thing of national pride for them to get that Tesla plant up and running and get those cars out the door.
Now, just to flip things slightly, North America EV sales Q3, 179,000 units. That's up 63% from last year, same time. So wow. The U.S. market is really exploding, and quite frankly, I'm betting on everything I've read. It's because of gas. I mean, gas is at $5.65 or so an average in California right now per gallon. San Bernardino down here in Southern California has got the highest gas. People start hitting that pain point when you go into the gas station and you fill up your SUV that's got a 28-gallon tank and you're paying close to $6 a gallon. That hurts.
Indeed.
It's one way to get someone's attention to an EV, and the fact that you can pay, at least here in Southern California, with Southern California Edison, you can pay as low as 17 cents a kilowatt hour, which makes for a pretty cheap refill.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, the likelihood of the EV market slowing down is nil. I mean, it's just going to keep growing and growing at this rate. I don't know. I'm really curious to see what the quality of the output coming out of the Berlin factory, because I think one of the benefits of having these different factories, these different plants from Tesla, is it's almost becomes competitive to see how the quality output could be between different sites, and how things that are working well in one site can be brought to another site to improve quality overall. And I've lived in Germany. I've worked in Germany. I know that they have a lot of pride in their manufacturing and engineering. They really care about quality control. I didn't work in automotive when I was there. I worked in medical devices and then also semiconductor. And they really strive for that process control, that quality control. So I don't know. I'd be pretty happy probably to get a car coming out of Berlin, but sadly they don't make Model S flats.
maybe the Model 2. Maybe the Model 2 will come out there.
Model 2.
Yeah. I mean, I worked in optics, and the best, most complicated, also most expensive, but highest tolerance manufactured stuff came from Germany. So we'll see. That should be exciting. We've already heard good things about the Shanghai plant.
Yeah, the Shanghai plant's gotten high marks across the board.
Got to get out.
Hopefully, Giga Texas will do well as well. Now that those vehicles are shipping.
I mean, on the flip side of that, then what's the issue, with Fremont? Like, have so many variability and panel gaps and other things. I mean, I know when I got my Model 3, I spent maybe about an hour going over it in terms of and a bunch of little things I just decided I could live with, and some other things that they fixed. And I've helped some other friends with their deliveries, because it's just one of the things if I recommend a Tesla to somebody, I'm like, okay, well, let me show up when you get it and help you go over it, and help you advocate for things that you think should be fixed and try to actually get them fixed.
Do you think it's a question of scale that the California plant just can't crank out the number of cars they're trying to do and maintain quality?
Scale? I don't know, man. I'm not sure what their process is that they have, that there's essentially some variability. I think it must be like the panels, right? Are they being put on by, I mean, I know there are a lot of machines doing a lot of stuff, but, I don't know, door alignment is some of that stuff by hand, and they're just trying to be faster and they don't check it as well, or
I mean, some of it's certainly by hand, like the assembly of the door and all that, because they have to, when they put the glass in and when they do to get the motors through. Monroe just did a really great teardown where they could see it, and some of it absolutely has to be done by hand just because of how it's manufactured, or how the parts are made. But
I would think hanging the door on the pillar is an automatic process.
Probably.
So
I don't know, but I would assume
how do we
yes.
get the door wrong
Right.
if you're hanging it with a robot?
Certainly, a lot of the things they're able to adjust by hand, right? They fix them, right?
Yeah.
I think the problem is, or a problem is, that they don't bother properly fixing them before they deliver them. I mean, some percentage of people aren't going to
Get it out the door
and just, But how about, maybe it goes back to you're saying, hire people if they need to hire people. Yeah, maybe hire some people, and actually spend more time on that QA instead of leaving it up to the customer.
I mean, I'm sure they have a QA group that is looking at cars. They probably, I would assume, take a lot of pride in the work that they're doing. It's just a matter of they probably can't look closely enough at all the cars, the rate that they're manufacturing at the plant. So if I had to guess, I'd probably agree with Mike that they just need to hire more QA people to do that job. Or maybe they see it and, like you said, it could be a lot of people won't notice. So it's cheaper not to bother.
If you continue with it, though, then there's the whole service issue, and it's like, okay, well, do you just hire more people so that we have better service?
Sure.
Better service, better QA before it goes out the door.
Sure.
Because I helped a friend. There was a delivery of a Model Y, and the other thing is, Tesla changes stuff quite often, which is great. But one problem was, I guess in the process of putting the door in or something, they scratched the leather on the door. Okay, and their solution to that was, okay, they just put a new door panel in. Okay, great. You get a new door panel, and this was that delivery was, I guess, around the end of a quarter. And it was amazing how like the delivery specialist when they got it was really rude because they're just trying to get the cars out, and he was kind of like take it or leave it so they can keep moving to the next guy. Yeah. And I'm like, well, we're gonna take our time on this delivery, and I felt kind of bad, because I said they should get this car, and I'm helping them deliver, and the actual Tesla representative was very impatient. But anyway, they took delivery, but there were a bunch of things, and so I helped advocate for the things that needed to be fixed. And so the guy that we took it to after the fact, and they lived close to the factory, so we went to the delivery center. And we worked on that delivery, and it was on getting the things taken care of. So so there's a scratch in the door. They on the door panel, on the interior. They replaced that, but somehow in that time, in those few weeks, they had changed the door panel, right?
Oh, man.
And so the left-hand side doesn't match the right-hand side.
Wow.
It's like, oh, man. And it was kind of embarrassing, really. So like the button, for example, to open the door, prior is just a kind of a dash. And, I have this issue with passengers. They don't know how to open the door. Right, what's this button? It just has a little lighted dash. Well, wisely, they changed it to something that looks like a door opening, right? And so, so they have that on one side, and the other side has the dash.
Oops.
So and there are also issues with, there are some, the liner around the door, the gasket that needed to be replaced. And so the new gasket is much, much thicker. And so, the rear door on the left side closes different than the rear door on the right side because it's just a completely different gasket. And now, do you go back and say, well, can you change the other one too?
Right.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the other one. It's just different.
It's within spec is what it is.
Yeah,
it's within spec is what they say.
That's a dirty sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, I've read on TMC forums, sounds like they are improving quality overall. Like it seems to be newer deliveries don't seem to have as many problems. The alignment and fit issues, they still exist. I don't want to say that they don't exist, but it sounds like they have gotten better. I'm looking forward to seeing how my new one looks. If it has, I have the whole checklist.
I would be interested in looking at the numbers and saying, all right, how's fit and finish out of California? How's fit and finish out of Texas? How's fit and finish out of Shanghai? And see if there's actually a comparison between greenfield factory building versus something that was recycled.
How much do you think, I just want to ask you guys in general, how much do you think the quality of the car that comes out has to do with the local culture? as opposed to, whatever manufacturing processes?
I think it's very important.
It depends. If you well, think about it. If you've got robot assembly, robots don't care where they are. There's no local culture with a robot.
For example, like I just tend to think like in China, I don't think the Tesla customer in China, I don't think would accept the kind of things that we see, right? Like, or at least I've seen in cars being delivered. And I remember the first person that took delivery of a Tesla, a Model S in China. I mean, to us it sounds ridiculous, but he got the car and he immediately smashed the windshield. Right? And that sounds ridiculous. You just got this thing you've been waiting for and you just smashed the windshield. Like, you're an idiot and you're having a temper tantrum or whatever. Like, that's culturally how we might look at it, but from his point of view, and maybe it makes more sense within the local culture, is that I was expecting this car and it came months later than I was supposed to get it, and this is a way of expressing my dissatisfaction in a very public way, and that's what he did. I mean, of course he had to go pay for it to get it fixed, but it sort of shows that, okay, you were sold something, and one of the promises was that you were going to get it at a certain time, and that promise wasn't upheld, and Tesla didn't give him a discount or do anything for him getting it late. So you would think similarly, okay, I get this car and my panel gaps are a mess or whatever, what would they accept there? And similarly, and I would think, Europeans might expect a level of quality, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think it certainly depends on the individual, but you're right. Culturally, there's things. I mean, what you just said reminds me of Elon throwing the ball bearing at the Cybertruck and shattering the windshield, or the window on the driver's side, which is fantastic. Don't do it a second time. Apparently, was the lesson there. But I don't know what. So I've lived in the U.S. And did manufacturing also in Europe and in Asia. And my impression of working with folks in those various cultures is that there's a huge difference, and the output of what they produce is very different. Now, if you have good manufacturing processes and you have good things in place, you can come out with a product that essentially is the same thing. So to the consumer, it doesn't matter.
I mean, Honda and Toyota have done it for years, building cars here in the States.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly. So I don't want to say it's not possible to do. However, the way in which you get there is different. So for what I've seen is like to make the same product in the US, to make it in Germany or France, which I was lived in both, or in like Taiwan, Singapore, Japan. It's very different processes that cause you to get the same output. And so anyway, so I definitely think it's different. But to your point, the expectation is probably different. I think Americans may not express themselves in the same way that someone, but even in China, it's probably different, right? Someone in China that can afford to buy a Tesla is probably not the same as someone, that wouldn't afford to buy a Tesla. I'd say, and I don't know the numbers here. Mike, I should have asked you. You probably have them on hand. But I mean, I'm just curious, like, for standard GDP and the populace, like, is it in one could argue middle class in the U.S. could afford a Tesla, not maybe an S or an X or certainly not a Roadster. But like, can middle class in China afford a Tesla? I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Or is it like a different level of their their society?
Depends what you call middle class, but certainly, certainly within China, they have a relatively new and very much growing middle class. Fewer people are, on the farms, and they're moving to the cities, and China is an economic powerhouse and growing. So there certainly is a growing middle class. I'm not sure that middle class is necessarily say, oh, this is a middle class that can afford a Tesla, though.
Right. So I'm curious, Marc, how was yours? You had a 3. Like, how was your fit and finish? Did you have to go over a lot?
So yeah, so with me, my first one was in March 2020, and it was it was one of the few cars made on the line before they shut down for Corona, for COVID, and I was very nervous about that. But so when I got it, I was very pleased to see that it had no issues, and because I just suspected it was going to throw it together and to get out of there, but it really
it's shocking to me.
Really
I would
nice.
have thought the same.
Yeah. And then I just got my recent one here this past Sunday, the 28th of February, and again, it was delivered. It was no problems, no gaps. I mean, I've been watching all these videos. I didn't take a ruler out, but just eyeballed everything, and the quality and the fit and finish was really nice. I also want to say that throughout this whole process of getting the car, waiting for it to be built, I frequented the waiting rooms on the TMC forums, mostly the performance, but I did dip into the long range and the standard one. And the majority of people that I saw or read had no issues with them. There were a few that had some major issues. They weren't like a thing. They're like a major, like the door wouldn't close. I saw those.
Oh, wow.
It wouldn't close all the way. They had to like slam it to close it.
Push it, yeah.
But the majority of them seemed to be really confident and comfortable with the way it was. And because of people are so concerned about the fit and finish, we've seen the videos, we've seen the topics about them. People were literally spending like time looking around. So I think because of the forum and because of people mentioning this, for prior bills, it gave people that education to say, okay, I know what to look for, and they would have a checklist of things to look for. So I think it's getting better.
I definitely have a checklist. I'm probably going to bring out some calipers just to mess with them. I'm not going to. I don't plan on you, but I just want to see his face when he goes, "Oh, let's look at the car." This goes down to a tenth of a micron.
They got gap sticks you can buy. Take your gap stick and do the panel body.
What
was the commercial?
Right, exactly.
So
what was the commercial? They used to roll the marble down the panel.
Right.
That was
I remember that.
That was Infinity.
It's back in the day. So there's something else I want to mention about the Model 3 performance specifically, and this was on the forums a lot, on the TMC forums, is that people were concerned about the performance model not being lowered as the long range was, and they thought that Tesla removed whatever suspension features they did to make the car lower, and it was a big cause of concern for a lot of people in the forums. So what I did in my non-scientific way was when I saw those, I still had my 2020 Model 3 performance, so I took a measuring tape and measured it from the ground to the fender, and it was and I say this, it had the old performance tire, which was a PS4, Michelin PS4, and then the old performance wheel. Now they got the new Ubertine. So when I got my new car and it had the P0s, the Pirelli P0s with the Ubers on it, what I noticed was the gap was much bigger from the tire to the wheel well, but that was because how the tire rolls. They like stretch the tire onto the rim, and so it gives it more of a gap. I was able to notice that because again, I took measurements of my old car, and then I took measurements with my new car with the P0s. The gap was much bigger. I then went and got my PS4s put on because I prefer those, and the gap was the exact same as my 2020. So I think the majority, it's unscientific, but I think the majority of that is because of how the wheel stretches and it curves more, so there's more of a gap there. And we talked about it in the forums. Some people kind of say, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So but I don't think that. I just wanted to say that I don't think that in my opinion that the performance model was lower, because it looks the same.
Now, I'm just curious. So, being ignorant of the Model 3s, do they allow you to? Is there an air suspension where you can adjust it or no? Okay. Yeah, I figured not, because that's expensive, and they're trying to not raise the price.
You can buy adjustable coilovers.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do. If that's what you care about for that kind of car, you don't really want air suspension.
Sure.
You want to go in there and just put in the springs you want to get the ride you want.
Right. Yeah, I mean, now something that would concern me though, and so I like that you said you changed the tires, is the road noise, right? So when you stretch the tire out like that, you don't have as much, there's not as much thickness in the rubber. You're gonna feel it a little bit depending on the car. I don't know, you'll feel it when driving, but also road noise is gonna be different. Do you see that as a thing a lot of people are, doing? They're swapping over their tires. They don't like the ones.
My Contis are the factory OEM, and they're pretty noisy. They've got a high level of road noise.
Mike, do you know if they have the foam inside that tire or not?
No.
Because I think that makes a difference. I think it does.
It certainly can. I agree with you. I think one of the problems though right now is just tires, with supply chain are really hard to get, especially the really sought after model tires. I did that with my previous car in December. I was ordering parts, and it's like you go on the tire rack and you're like, all right, this is what I want. And they're like, cool, you won't have those for at least 6 months. And you're like, it's tire. What are you talking about? So I ended up settling on a different, I settled on different tires that were like, well, okay, these will be close enough. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted. So
have you looked at the new Goodyears? They're supposed to be engineered for EVs.
I saw that, yeah.
I saw them. I didn't look at them closely. I don't know what makes them EV special. So
yeah, I haven't found any real hard information on it yet.
That sounds like a marketing gimmick.
They're claiming. I mean, they can claim anything, but the fact they're even claiming it's specific for EVs says how far the market's come.
I mean, a lower rolling resistance would be good for any car, right?
Well,
but a lower rolling resistance tends to be a harder rubber, which makes less traction. So It's not something you want to go playing on the skid pad with.
No, I mean, so that trade-off exists, again, for whichever car.
It exists everywhere.
So I know something that I was thinking about earlier, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, is the Polestar concept with the drone on it. Now, I'm a licensed drone operator, Part 107, so...
You would be.
That I saw the video
Speaking of
on
toys.
that, and I was like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of rules and things, because so what? I got my Polestar. I'm gonna go down to downtown New York and just pull it out.
Right,
and
your
just
drone
fly around,
following you.
With people around. You're not supposed to fly a drone over people. So it
You're supposed to have line of sight also. How can you keep line of sight on your drone while you're supposed to keep your eyes on the road?
Yeah, right. And then how can a drone, how can it manipulate itself in space and still be able to communicate with you where it is and what you want to do? And I mean, I'm sure it can land back on the car and take off from the car, but the way that the concept of it looked in the video, it doesn't look like it has enough power. Like the box isn't big enough to hold enough power for it to keep up with a car going 50 miles an hour. It looks cool, but
yeah,
I'm not sure. If,
a bit of a gimmick, probably. I don't. That would be my guess as a marketing gimmick. But I think the answer to some of what you asked though is is all the stuff that Tesla's doing, right? Full self-driving. I don't need to pay attention. I can watch the drone footage. I can get integrated screens. I could but no, I'm just kidding.
Well, and on the same side of that, well, the drone has its own AI, and the drone is detecting everything that's around it, and also keeping pace with your car. So
the drone's going to use Starlink to do upload the satellite.
Yeah, and give you a live view of your car, so you can be like, look how cool I look while I'm not driving.
Yeah, and so the back pedal to make it more what it is that Polestar has a concept vehicle coming out where they have a drone that will actually take off from the vehicle, and it will actually give you these cool shots of yourself driving around. So if you were someplace that you thought was picturesque and you wanted to capture that for your social media, you would let this drone fly out and do this whole thing. Now there's a company called Skydio, and I have one of their drones, and it's completely autonomous. Like you tell it to follow you, it knows where you are. So if you went through bushes and through trees, it can go through. It can see a tree, opening and go through that without you even touching, because it knows where it is. The technology is DJI are the tops in drones, but Skydio, their gear and their camera systems are way leaps and bounds than what DJI have out right now.
What was that name? Skydio?
Skydio.
That sounds a lot like Skynet.
So they
Oh,
also
man.
so this company
Tinfoil
also,
hat's coming.
this company also has those drones. The one I have it can actually, you can design them where they come out of a housing, fly over surveil certain areas, and then as it gets low on battery, it knows to go back and then recharge itself, and another one can go out, or they can both talk to each other.
I'm pretty sure I saw this movie.
I mean, is there
That's
identify
something
Sarah Connor?
is there
Sarah
like
Connor?
Sarah Connor. Is there like a benefit though to the drone being part of the car though? I mean, like I don't understand. If you're into that, you could just buy a different drone, better drone, whatever, bring it with you.
I would say, hey, there are some cool applications. Certainly, especially if the car is self-driving. Like, oh, can it go up and scout ahead? Can it see the traffic? And especially if you have a kind of more connected vehicles with something like, Starlink or Skynet or whatever you want to call it. If they can communicate that information. I think there's definitely applications. But in this, it's just a concept video, and they're just showing like a gimmick type thing. But there's certainly applications that would be.
So maybe like cool. If you had a drone and you put a LiDAR or radar in it, and then no, I'm just kidding. And the car got signal.
But you know what that gimmick is doing? It's getting guys like us talking about the possibilities.
To talk about it, right?
Sure.
Right. That car doesn't even exist, right? That's the concept as it is, right?
Yeah, it's a concept, yeah.
The Polestar, was it O2 or something?
O2. It's there's just too, I mean, just a drone, there's way too many rules, that,
rules.
if you're recreational use, you can get away saying it's recreational use, and that's fine. There's a different set of rules for that. But you still have to be aware of where you are in space and where this drone's going to be going.
Tell that to my neighbors. I have drones all the time. My wife is like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, oh, it's right there.
I mean, we have a paparazzi law that came out here in Hollywood just because of people doing that.
Yeah.
People like me was trying to make an honest living doing stuff, and then the paparazzi law came. I said, okay, you know what? You can't have any drones, in certain neighborhoods here in L.A.
That's interesting. So,
well, in the Bay Area, you have plenty of drones checking out what's going on at Tesla, what's going on at Apple. What's going on? Actually, there's like some channel that's just doing drone footage of the Tesla plant in Texas too.
That whole thing in Fremont. I have to say some of that. I mean, come on. When they went to the Cybertruck and they're like waving at it, I'm like, is that really leak? Is it really like, oh, we had no idea that a drone would be flying over?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
Can you see me? I'm leaking. Can you see me?
And then also,
I think you're supposed to leak in private, actually.
About the Cybertruck, they had you saw that like 2-second video of it on the test track. That was pretty cool. That was a little leak where someone had the Tesla on the Cybertruck on a test track, and it went around the curve, and you see it for about maybe 3 seconds or so. But I think they had the back of it was down, the back part was down, and so every time I see the truck leak, it looks different every time I see it. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Because they don't make it yet.
It's that scope.
Yeah, they don't make it yet. They're still playing with the design.
I don't know.
Don't worry, Mark. One day you will have a Cybertruck. They will eventually release the Cybertruck, and you will be, if not the first in line, you'll be in the line somewhere.
If there's someone who doesn't need a truck,
you can do the crawl turn that you want to do. Yeah.
If someone who's in a truck, is me. I mean, I live in a condo. There's no need for me to have it. I don't carry anything around. My drones can fit in my 3. But it's it's just it's Blade Runner. It's the 80s.
You're talking to the Plaid guy. I understand not needing something and buying it anyway. So I mean,
well, Lewis. I mean, you have a family, so you can justify that. You know what I'm saying? You're a tech guy.
A Plaid, really?
I have a family. I can't justify a Plaid.
I mean, Doug could probably get one too. He has a website he has to have, so he needs to represent the website fully.
That's right. He's got to represent the brand.
I think Danny's getting his Roadster too. So I mean, these guys they deserve some accolades from Tesla. Come on.
I'll tell my wife that. I'll see how far I get.
I don't know.
Well, I got one last thing I want to bring up and get some opinions on. And it's kind of interesting because it marries back to our whole manufacturing and support that we were talking about a little while ago. And it stems from an article I found where Tesla is saying that they may have to shut down their service centers in Oklahoma because Oklahoma has taken a rather punitive role with Tesla not going to Oklahoma. They kind of said, all right, well, if we can't play in the sandbox, we're just going to take the sandbox away. And they are trying to pass a resolution, in their state senate that says you cannot have service centers in our state because you don't have a dealer. You don't have a dealer model. That's the bottom line. And that got me curious, and I realized after some reading and research that you can't have direct sales in New Mexico, although they did get around that by doing direct sales. They have their service center on tribal land, which is not subject to the same laws as the state. So that was a very interesting loophole. I give them props for that. No direct sales in Alabama, no direct sales in South Carolina, no direct sales in Louisiana, no direct sales in Texas, even though they've got the Giga plant there, but you can buy it if you do it as an out-of-state order. And you complete it all out of state. They'll let you bring it in. Okay, that's the loaf is half full. Connecticut won't allow you a direct sale, but you can have a lease. So Tesla can have their center there and they can support it saying, well, they're going to test drive the car before they lease it. That's how they're working around that. West Virginia, no-go. Wisconsin, no-go. Nebraska's a no-go. All of these states have got very heavy lobby on the dealer side of the house saying you can't have direct sales. And, I'm wondering, what happens to the user that buys his or her Tesla, like me, California. I bought it in California. What happens if I move to Wisconsin? Or what happens if I move to South Carolina? How do I get my car supported? If I can't have a service center, do I have to make a midnight run across the border to another state?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you mentioned something I didn't know or hadn't heard. You're saying that there was a chance they were going to get a manufacturing plant, and the fact that they didn't get one.
Right.
For Giga
Oklahoma was
Texas.
in the running
Giga Texas.
for a Giga for what's now Giga Texas.
Mm-hmm. And so you think it's reactionary?
The money is saying it's punitive.
Because it tends to be the dealership lobbies that maintain those sort of ridiculous laws.
Absolutely.
But you wouldn't think those would be so directly related, right?
Well, if you tried to get the plant and you didn't, now the dealership's got the lever to say, well, see what happens. You tried to give. We tried to get the business. They didn't talk to us, so why should we even bother supporting them?
I could see it being because, certain politicians are upset that they didn't get the deal, that they're then going to support the lobbyist group more in, getting the legislation changed.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Like I said, this just came across my newsfeed.
It's a little tinfoil hatty, but,
Well, I would say historically, which is the main viewpoint I can give, there were some people in southern LA that felt really burned when Tesla got the NUMMI plant, because there were two cities that were vying for that plant, for the Tesla manufacturing, which didn't exist. There was no Tesla factory then. All there was pretty much a small place in San Carlos that was helping assemble the motors, and I think most of that was actually happening in Thailand. They had some of the batteries the battery packs were getting put together there, but that ended up moving to San Carlos also, and then Menlo Park was doing the final assembly. But Model S didn't really exist yet, and they're going to get a factory, and no one saw NUMMI coming, right? In fact, Tesla had been asked about it earlier, and they're like, "Oh, that's way too big for us, and we can't buy that." Of course, they managed to get it for a song from Toyota, and so of course they take that opportunity, but. Those two towns in LA were not too happy about it. Not that there was much they could do about it. But from the other aspect, I mean, this isn't something that's passed yet, right? This in terms of this.
No, it has not passed.
So another thing that's happened, and I'm sure will happen here, is that Tesla fans, Tesla owners will rally to do what they can to keep this from happening.
So this did pass the House committee unanimously. It passed one of two votes.
Mm-hmm. Laws like this, and this one and the one in West Virginia you mentioned in the last podcast, they're really just anti-consumer. Like they're not really targeting Tesla. I mean, they're targeting Tesla, but like there's no justification from any side of it other than we don't want people to have the right to do this thing. That's it.
Exactly.
And buying a Tesla is not harming anyone.
Exactly. Well,
right. Well, I mean, okay, you're right, Mark. You hit it on the head. It's harming someone, but it's not really harming. It's not doing actual harm.
Right.
With regard to, it doesn't make the environment worse. It's not, it's not murdering anyone.
It's like,
so it's very silly that they make these kind of laws.
Yeah.
Purely motivated by money.
Yeah. Have a, like from the, say what you want about Tesla service, but about the panel gaps, but the majority of the cars I think come out pretty well, pretty put together. So, think about the whole process. You don't have to speak with a human being at all. You just look at the phone from the comfort of wherever you are. You can decide what color you want, the configuration you want, and then everything happens as it needs to. Your car is delivered to you, and if you have any issues, like not an issue, but I'm getting a home link installed. It's in an app. Say, hey, you know what? We'll bring a Ranger out. We'll take care of that for you at your house. So that whole process, even tire rotations, they could do that at your house. So granted, there's not much maintenance on our cars, but the point is that it's very streamlined and there's no pressure. Like, oh my gosh, I got to take out from work. You can set the schedule when you want to, and then they come to you. They bring the service to you. So that's a great ecosystem to be in, and you got the traditional dealer where you have to, I got to get off work, I got to go fight in traffic, get there. Can I get a loaner? Well, we don't know about that. Your car sits out in the yard for a few days for to get to it. So say what you want about, some of the gaps, but I think their overall process and what Tesla are trying to do, I think it's changing the playing field,
Absolutely. I hate going to a dealership. Like, it's so painful to have a salesperson pressuring you or trying to it's like, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to, I want to look. I will decide what I want. Here are the options. When we bought my wife's car, brand new, I don't know, 2018, something like that, we actually ordered it from the factory. I had to go to a dealer. It was a Jeep. I had to go to the dealer and deal with all the salespeople to finally just be like, look, this is the options I want. Do you have one on the lot? No. Great. Order me one. That's it. And, that whole negotiation over price and all the other nonsense, Tesla gets rid of all that. It's brilliant. It's like every car company should move to this model. Get rid of the dealers, sell direct. It's such a better experience. So I hope that is the way of the future and that all the cars go that way. But until they do, I'll be happy just buying Teslas.
Exactly.
There's some sense that Ford might be trying to do that, right? With the
I've heard that rumor.
With trying to separate out their electric vehicles might have that kind of model. And it kind of throws back to the EV1, which worked through the Saturn model, and the Saturn was trying to be a different type of dealership kind of thing.
Wasn't Saturn the same idea? It was a fixed price. You just walked in, you picked the color you wanted. No mess, no fuss.
Yeah, that's what it was. And so the EV1, they called it the GM EV1, but it was sold through the Saturn dealerships, and so it was that sort of model. Like, okay, here's the price. You have to deal with negotiation. I mean, you saw how long it lasted. I mean, Saturn is.
The Saturn was a cool. That was.
But they were cool cars. I remember the
whole promotion of it was kind of cool.
Yeah, they're okay vehicles.
It was different.
In the day anyway.
That was Was it Chrysler?
No, GM.
No, that was GM.
GM.
Yeah.
You said GM. Yeah, you said that. It was a cool car. The two-door. I actually thought about getting a two-door when I had my Yugo. I thought about getting the two door when it came out. I was like, no.
Yugo. There's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Hey man, I love that car, man. I had that car for 4 years.
That's like having a little Geo Metro, you know.
It's much better. It was much better. I love that car, man. That car was fantastic to me. I dogged it out and it stayed the course. All right, guys, that was episode number 2. We want to thank you for coming out and joining us today. I had a really fun time with these guys. Doug was amazing. He was really a wealth of information. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe us. And if you also have any questions, concerns, comments, if you have the potential to want to be a guest on the show, there is a new podcast section on the forum. Please check that out and put your information there. You can also leave it down in the YouTube comments. All of us check those at some form or another. If you'd also like to be a supporting member of the website, then consider doing it as well. It would really help out the site and keep things like this going for us. If you want to follow us on social media, those links are also in the description. Thanks again for a wonderful time with us, and we'll see you soon.